Good evening, everyone. Share the live. Let's wait a few more seconds until more people join. Share the live. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah Muhammad. Many of you would know me as the sister of the opposition leader, Azrin Mohammed, and the daughter of businessman and gold trader, Nazar Mohammed. I wanted to sit here this evening to speak a bit on the latest developments of the Mohammed's extradition case. I wanted to do this live discussion and to do it to the best how I can this evening to give my own personal and intimate perspective, mainly as a member of the Mohammed family, someone who has sat through roughly 30 court proceedings. That's 30, not 13, 30 in the past 4.5 months. So in 2020, when the PPP took office, this family, the Mohammed family, has always been a charitable family who have done humanitarian work for decades. And my brother, Azrin Mohammed, who has also always done charitable work since he was very young, and with social media coming into play, some of his charitable acts became publicized. And so people across Guyana would see and learn of his charity works across communities and villages and regions across Guyana. And so this attracted a lot of attention. It also attracted a lot of hate, a lot of envy, a lot of fear. And so, as he became more and more popular, due mainly to his humanitarian works, my father, Nazar Mohammed, he started receiving messages and calls from many persons, from senior government officials, from persons he knew, from mutual acquaintances, asking him to tell your son to ease up with the charitable works. Yes, it's really good. Yes, it's really nice to help people. But to tell him not to post it on social media and not to let it find its way into the newspapers and into the public domain. Many of you would recall his donations to various schools, dozens, scores of schools, and then a public notice came from the then Minister of Education, Priya Manik-Chan, saying that he needed permission to enter the schools, permission which he was never given thereafter. This was a calculated act by the PPP government to prevent him from his charitable works. The senior government officials would even send emissaries on, according to my father, on nearly 10 occasions at least, to his place of worship. Many of you would know that my father is a devout Muslim and he attends the masjid at nights for his Maghrib and Isha Salah. And so the emissaries would be sent there to meet with him and to ask him to encourage his son not to do these charitable works or not to share them, and to ask him to ease up, to stand down. You know, it's making us look bad. These were the comments that he would receive. And so everything that has happened from then to now must come as no surprise. So I wanted to come on here this evening to give my personal and intimate perspective as a family member, as a member of the Muhammad family, and as someone who has sat in nearly every single court proceeding in the last 4.5 months since Azrin Muhammad was arrested in a public spectacle. Also as a private and a concerned Guyanese citizen. As a woman who has witnessed much of the bile and the venom that has transpired in this case, which has even been directed to a female judicial officer of the court, Principal Judy Latchman, by the PPP government and its surrogates, the likes of the Guyanese critic, of the Robin Singhs and the Don Singhs of the PPP's government and surrogates. Their relentless smear campaign on the principal magistrate has been nothing short of abuse.
Is worry is nonsense. Because news, like, this is very deceitful. You know what I'm telling you? This is madness. She ain't know the game that they play. I am saying she's part of the shenanigans. She knows exactly what's going on. She's a player in the Muhammad's game. You imagine, it started She Court. It got to the High Court. It got to the Full Court. It got to the Appeal Court. It is now the CCJ, and Judy Latchman still entertaining one witness. A lady who collect a bag and pass it on. A lady who collect an envelope. Sharon Rupchan collect an envelope. She's the PS for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Collect an treated like this. And I deal with evidence. She's part and parcel of the Mohammed's shenanigans. Judy Latchman, you tell him I said so.
So there are many such utterances from the PPP surrogates. A woman with an unblemished career who has faced unrelenting abuse from the PPP government. What Principal Magistrate Judy Latchman has endured over the past 4.5 months at the hands of the PPP is nothing short of abuse. These repeated doxing on social media and these cruel attempts to undermine her is unbelievable. So I have sat in her courtroom and I have watched her respond to every challenge with composure, with discipline, and with professionalism. The magistrate is a stickler for discipline and order and fairness, and I can say without hesitation that everyone who appears before her has learned from her insistence on proper conduct, including myself. You know, contrary to the narrative being advanced by the PPP government, Magistrate Judy Latchman has not been lenient toward the Mohammed family. Every single one of us has been reprimanded when necessary. She has demonstrated a fair and a firm and even-handed approach at all times. On one occasion, she ordered the arrest of Azrin Mohammed when he was not present within 5 minutes of the courtroom, 5 minutes of the court's commencement. And on several other occasions, she disciplined him without hesitation. She disciplined him without hesitation. And his position or title as the opposition leader of Guyana, of the Cooperative of Guyana, carried no special weight in her courtroom. It was very clear to everyone in her courtroom, journalists and reporters alike, visitors, everyone, that status and politics did not govern her courtroom. It was guided by principle. You know, and even throughout all of this, Azrin Mohammed always had a smile on his face. Even his ankles shackled and handcuffed on several occasions, I believe 4 occasions, he always had a smile on his face. So Principal Latchman did not make it easy on him, not by a stretch of the imagination. And I admire how she has managed to maintain her professionalism throughout this relentless scrutiny and abuse and smear campaign by the PPP government and its surrogates. Is there no line to draw? Must we sink this low? I've just been reminded that the president himself, Irfan Ali himself, asked my father to tell his son to step down, not to announce his bid for the presidency, for the candidacy. So from very early on in this case, I have made a decision that I needed to attend every court proceeding and report factually and accurately and without distortion on the events happening in the courtroom to give our account and our perspective because of what is happening in our country, the stifling of the independent press. We all have seen what has happened with Stabroek News, burdened by what has been described as an unprecedented and historic debt by the Department of Public Information and the government of Guyana. And so today, Stabroek News was forced to close their doors. Without Stabroek News, Guyana loses one of its most important pillars of independent journalism and accountability. And we continue to see the stifling of the press in Guyana. We are seeing all kinds of laws that the PPP government is trying to enact to stifle independent press in Guyana. They're even trying to stifle press in the parliament. And at the same time, their propagandists are taking over social media with misinformation and with blatant lies. And so because of all of that, I knew that I had to do this, to bring my account, to bring our account to the people of Guyana, to be present, to follow every proceeding, and to ensure that the people of Guyana hear from us truthfully and without any distortion. You know, this case is bigger than just Azardin Mohammed. This is about justice. It's about fairness. It's about whether the average Guyanese can expect to be treated equally under the law in their own country. Now, I have sat behind my 72-year-old father, 7 to 3 in 2 days. He's going to be 7 to 3 on Friday. Nazar Mohammed. And he doesn't like me saying this because he always says that he doesn't need pity from anyone. He doesn't need sympathy from anyone. That he has his Lord and that's enough. But I have watched him climb court steps more than 30 times, every proceeding without fail, no matter how sick he felt. You know, no matter what was going on in his life on a personal level, rain or shine, through floods, through illness, and he has shown the utmost respect and profound regard for the courts. He's always present and always on time, and sometimes early. He has complied with every single request from the court. Throughout the holy month of Ramadan, a 72-year-old man, while fasting, has sat 7-hour court days. And on his Sabbath day, for Muslims, it's Friday, Yawmul Jumu'ah. And practicing Muslims would tell you that for men, missing that Friday prayer, the special Jumu'ah prayer, 3 times in a row, sometimes some scholars, Islamic scholars would say it takes you out of the fold of Islam. And so that Friday prayer is very important to my dad. And he has not missed that Friday prayer consecutively 3 Fridays in a row in years, probably decades. And so he attends court religiously for every single proceeding. And I have watched him also drift off in the afternoon sessions due to the medications that he is taking from his illnesses. So I have seen all of this firsthand. Those illnesses, by the way, have now made themselves into the public domain due to the leaking of his private medical record. You know, these are the things that this family is being subjected to. Leaked by prosecutor for the state, PPP attorney Glenn Hanneman, who leaked it to the same PPP propagandists. Glenn Hanneman, with his repeat callousness in this case and unprofessionalism and his relentless dirty politics and tactics, you know, he has such a personal interest in this matter. He should have recused himself from the very first proceeding. On one occasion in court, he made an outburst referring to the opposition leader Azrin Mohammed as the biggest criminal. On another occasion, he referred to the Mohammed family as a criminal family network. He continues to make improper statements which are unprofessional as a prosecutor. And to this day, the public is still uninformed of his legal fees, exactly how much taxpayers are paying him, his constant travel back and forth between Guyana and Portugal, where he resides, his upscale hotel accommodations at the Sleep-In Hotel, how much all of this is costing taxpayers, his transportation, his security, his meals. I have sat through court proceedings watching my brother, Azrin Mohammed, the leader of the opposition of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, handcuffed on 4 occasions at least. One of them, even his ankles were shackled. But always with a smile on his face, you know? On October 31st, when he was arrested, at that time, myself, along with some East Bank, some counselors on the East Bank, we were doing some hamper distributions up on the Linden Suicide Highway. And we received a call that the then, at the time he was the presumptive opposition leader, was arrested. And so we turned around and we rushed to Georgetown. So Azrin Mohammed was jumped, and I say jumped because there were more than a dozen masked men, not in police uniform, heavily armed to the teeth, that jumped him in the public, handcuffed him. He asked if he could sit in the back of the pickup or the back of the police car because he has always complied with police and instructions. But they refused because they were given direct orders to throw him in the back of the pickup and to parade him in the streets of Georgetown, the presumptive opposition leader, in an attempt to embarrass and humiliate him. But this stunt failed spectacularly. The PPP continues to make a martyr out of Azrin Mohammed. So he arrived at the Georgetown Magistrates Court on October 31st, 2025, which was a Friday, so the last court day of the week. Just 2 days before Parliament was set to be resumed on November 3rd, the following Monday. and where he was due to be sworn in as a member of parliament in the National Assembly, after the PPP government held the country hostage, stifling democracy, preventing a formalized opposition to sit in parliament, and stretching its time to the constitutional limit, which was until November 3rd. And so the PPP knew that they had a very short window to try to get Azrin Mohammed remanded and in prison so that he is not sworn in as a member of parliament. And so when that ATP arrived in Guyana, we all knew that it did not go through the proper channels, that it was rushed in the dead of the night, as Defense Counsel for the Mohammeds have said, into the hands of the senior government officials. In a rush to arrest Azrin Mohammed the very next morning. But the magistrate was not convinced that the Mohammeds were to be remanded, and they were placed on bail. And so Azrin Mohammed on November 3rd was sworn in as a member of parliament, despite all of these efforts. And then the witch hunt and the abuse on the magistrate began. So today, the Caribbean Court of Justice did what the local courts here in Guyana, the High Court and the Court of Appeal, refused to do. They halted the Mohammed's extradition. You know, there are so many other extradition cases than the Mohammeds, including the Vitesh Guptar case. Have we ever heard about this case from the PPP government? Where were the battery of high-profile lawyers, foreign lawyers, senior counsels, king's counsels, queen's counsels? Where were they? They used a local attorney from the DPP in the Vitesh Guptar extradition case. They didn't even appeal the case after Mr. Guptar won his extradition case. What happened to the other senior government official who was sanctioned? What happened to her? Have we ever heard anything about her? So, a direct quote from the president of the CCJ today, the Honorable Justice Winston Anderson, a direct quote from him. He said, "We think that it is in the interest of justice that this interim stay be granted." So the Caribbean Court of Justice today delivered this decisive and principled ruling, granting the stay of the ongoing extradition matter of the opposition leader Azrin Mohammed and his father Nazar Mohammed, in a powerful affirmation of justice, fairness, and the protection of fundamental rights. It's a landmark decision that affirms the court's commitment to due process and ensures that no citizen is subjected to unlawful or biased proceedings. I really appreciated this report from HGP Nightly News, where they reported that neither the High Court nor the Guyana Court of Appeal was willing to grant the Caribbean Court what the Caribbean Court of Justice has stepped in to do, to freeze the extradition committal proceedings. This is a sweeping order. It stops everything. And as was said by the CCJ president, this was done simply in the interest of justice. Kaieteur News reported it as justice finally served. They described it as a major legal victory, noting that the court acted to preserve the status quo and to protect the liberty of the Mohammed family. So today, after the CCJ orders, Attorney General Anil Nandalal, while still licking his wounds, attempted to portray the CCJ's willingness to treat the matter as urgent, while contrasting this urgency to the pace in the magistrate's court. But he neglected to mention that the president of the CCJ interrupted him during his extended remarks on the principal magistrate and his comments on the length of the proceedings, effectively rebuking his comments on how the matter was unfolding and making it clear that the conduct and the pace of the committal proceedings fall squarely within the control of the presiding judicial officer. You neglected to mention that in your interview, Attorney General Anil Nandalal. He interrupted you, and he reminded you, and he rebuked you that the conduct and the pace of the committal proceedings falls squarely within the control of the presiding judicial officer, Principal Magistrate Judy Latchman, and not you. So Anil Nandalal is also saying that this was the result that he expected. So therefore, he's implicitly stating that the previous courts, the local courts here, the lower courts, the High Court and the Appeal Court, were wrong, even though he was elated at the lower court's rulings. So we welcome this ruling from the CCJ. We are grateful. We are grateful that there is still a place where fairness, where justice and law and due process can prevail. But we are saddened that we had to go beyond our shores and cross seas to seek justice. But at the same time, we ask, how can Guyanese treat their own in such a manner? How? So I want to talk a little bit about how this matter began. On June 11th, 2024, sanctions were imposed on the Mohammed family. The indictments that followed, every single thing, the sanctions, the indictments, were influenced by the PPP government. Everything. The auto pen by Marco Rubio, Senator Marco Rubio. Every single thing from the very start. Allegations were made of all sorts of crimes. All sorts of crimes. In the end, it's down to alleged wire fraud and other alleged financial crimes. And these were all allegations, not convictions. And to this day, no Guyanese court has found the Mohammeds guilty of any crime. The machinery of the state began to move. Extradition proceedings were launched. The process moved with a speed and intensity that continues to raise serious concern. And continue to this day. I'm going to skip through a lot of what I wanted to say because it's a lot. So the real cost of all of this, the people's money, the taxpayers' money, is something even deeper that we must confront. The financial cost of this matter, of which taxpayers are paying. Because this case, as statements are being made and as the case is unfolding and as pressure is being applied, who is paying for all of this? The Guyanese people. The Guyanese people, the taxpayers are paying for every single thing, for the first class airfare, the international travel, sometimes repeatedly, the accommodations, the hotel stays, not for one night, but for extended periods of time. Meals and daily expenses, all covered in full. Transportation and security arrangements, everything funded by taxpayers. The same taxpayers who continue to struggle with the rising costs of living. The same taxpayers who are dealing with poor drainage and flooding. The same taxpayers who are waiting for better health care and public services here in Guyana. And now with the matter advancing before the CCJ, that spending does not stop. It only increases. More legal fees, more preparations, more representations at the highest court, the apex court. So we continue to ask, and I always post about this, and I always ask, how much has already been expended on the extradition of the Mohammeds at the expense of taxpayers? How many billions of dollars have left the public treasury in the quest to extradite opposition leader Azrin Mohammed? And how much more will the people of Guyana be forced to pay? So, to conclude, where are we now? The Mohammeds have crossed the seas to the CCJ for justice. The extradition process is now paused. The matter will be reviewed fully and properly. The highest court will determine the path forward. And for the first time in a long time, there is a sense that justice will be carefully examined and not rushed. This case is about abuse of state power. It is about protection of the citizens under the law. And it is about the responsible use of taxpayers' money. So, as daughter and sister of both men in the center of this matter, and as someone who has been to almost every single court hearing, I will continue to follow this closely. And I will continue to speak, and I will continue to bring you, the people, the facts. And we will continue to inform our supporters and the people of how things are progressing. Justice must never be political. It must never be selective. It must never come at the unjust expense of the Guyanese people. The Attorney General is already making remarks that the Mohammeds and their defense counsel and their supporters are framing what happened today at the CCJ as a victory. And I say, yes, it is a victory. It's a victory with an important caveat that it's a major procedural victory, but it is not a final win. But it is a major victory because this stay stops the extradition proceedings. The CCJ has recognized the serious legal and constitutional issues that have arisen in this case. The case is being treated with urgency, hearing both the special leave and the substantive hearing together, which was requested, which Anil Nandalal failed to mention in his interview, was requested by counsel for the Mohammeds. And so we have achieved that. And this major victory today protects the Mohammeds, most importantly, from immediate risk of committal and no bail. So yes, it is a major legal victory. So I'd like to end with an excerpt from an article written today by one Hemdat Kumar, where he says, as one senior practitioner confided to this publication with characteristically Guyanese candor, that is where I just catch them and put lashes upon them, meaning the CCJ. Crude as the phrasing may be, the sentiment echoes widely within the legal community. A frustration born of watching justice reduced to formality while citizens' rights are trampled under bureaucracy and invisible influence. And so, until our courts rediscover the courage to act without fear or favor, justice in Guyana will continue to stumble in an abyss of darkness, where law becomes performance and fairness a distant echo. I'd like to thank everyone for all the words of encouragement and support, and especially all of the prayers. They mean more to us than anything else. Thank you, and have a good night.